Wolong Fallen Dynasty features some of the most brutal boss encounters in the old Souls-like genre of action RPGs. Based on this, it felt only right that I tried to rank these encounters based on their difficulty. Obviously this is based on my own subjective experience having recently completed the game, and I'll be happy to hear your views in the comments. Anyway, let's get into it and find out which bosses were an absolute cakewalk and which left me banging my head against a proverbial brick wall. Remember, if you like the video, to drop it a thumbs up, and if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my channel, Red Dog Gamer, I would really appreciate it. Thank you. The first boss on this list comes midway through Behold the Glaive of Righteousness, and although it looks menacing and there are two foes, it was actually super easy to take down. Part of the problem with this boss stems from the level design, meaning that I was morale rank 21 when I reached them and they were stuck at morale rank 9. This gulf means that he goes down quicker than an iPhone battery. Only joking iPhone, I love you really. In terms of the fight itself, try to focus on taking the big guy down first, as each time you take down his buddy you will revive him, meaning it will always be 2v1. Apart from that, be aggressive and beat them both to a pulp. Not much more to say about this fight. Next on the list is this big hulking monstrosity. Although the biggest boss in the game, it certainly isn't the baddest. As long as you can deflect his critical attacks, you'll breeze through this fight in no time at all. There are a few different stages, and the last stage results in the boss's health bar being regenerated. Don't let that worry you though, as once you stagger him here and initiate your own critical attack, the fight will finish. See? Nothing to worry about. Although billed as a major antagonist of the game throughout, UG was massively underwhelming and it was extremely easy to take him down. The biggest issue I had was taking out the boss that follows, and that features later in this list. UG serves as a dress rehearsal to the blindfolded boy with many of the same attacks. He will do multitudes of magical attacks such as volleys of swords, ice blasts and earthquake type attacks. He will also teleport close to you before slashing and can also do a spinning attack. One of his critical attacks can also be quite painful if caught by it, but generally most of his attacks are quite telegraphed and easy to deflect. As he is a dithering old man, you can get up and close and stagger lock him with rapid attacks. Before long, UG will be downed and you can look forward to the real challenge here. Coming quite early in the game, Zhang Bao does not pose a significant threat. The trick here is to not go in reserved, admiring his spellcasting abilities from a distance. Like a lot of mage type enemies, it's often best to get up close and personal, giving them less spellcasting opportunities. You will have two compadres helping you out too, which is a massive help, as all three of you can wade in on the boss and smash him to bits. Hoorah!
This foe may pose us a challenge. Be sure to keep your guard up.
Zhu Yan is the second boss in Wolong and becomes a recurring enemy throughout the latter game in particular. This boss did take me out a few times, as you really need to get used to the timing of his attacks, which can be incredibly damaging if you're not careful. It also doesn't help that by the time you reach Zhu Yan, you haven't had barely enough time to build up your morale rank. Nevertheless, once you have adjusted to his moveset, you should be able to get him out of there and send him back to the Zhu. Coming in at 16 is this Pumba lookalike himself, Feng Shi. Not an overly difficult boss, but you need to watch out for his charge attacks and his belly flops. The charges usually come in pairs, so be mindful of that. Apart from that, he is quite durable, so you will rely on your critical attacks to deal the majority of the damage. And the Quilin Divine Beast works well, as he will make his way over the thorns that is summoned, causing significant damage. For me, this is perhaps the least memorable fight on this list, and I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe because it wasn't overly difficult, there was nothing that really stands out other than his swiping attacks that you need to watch out for and some lightning that he rains down on the arena. You get good opportunities to wade into him whilst he engages with Sun Jian, and the critical attacks aren't too difficult to time. If you want added protection, you can equip armor or items that provide lightning resistance, but I'm not sure it's needed if I'm honest. Now design wise, I think this boss looks freaking awesome with snakes as weapons. It can also provide a bit of a challenge with fast attacks, making deflections quite a challenge indeed. The poison pools that bakes the arena floor in is a bit pointless as it never seems to go anywhere near the player, and so you simply avoid them areas. Critical attacks here include launching the snakes at you and following a little sprint around the arena wall. Maintain concentration levels throughout this fight and you will manage to come through in maybe a couple of attempts, hopefully. Okay, so this is where things start to get more difficult. Zhang Rang is a king-sized pain in the ass, and if you've ever faced him, you'll know why. When the fight starts, it is literally a Zhang Rang themed gangbang, with his clones all over the arena. Although the clones are felled pretty easily, the sheer number of them to contend with, all whilst being blasted by the boss himself, is hugely frustrating. If his clones are defeated, then he will summon them again and you'll have a room full of clones. I found leaving a couple of them in play meant that they weren't resummoned, so I used this tactic. I also recommend the Divine Beast Bayu, who helps with the crowd control, entertaining a few of them whilst he is around. Aside from that, pick off the clones, and once most of them are felled, turn your attention to Zhang Rang. Be wary at all times of his AoE attack, which can down you in one, and good luck, warrior. Sun Jian is one of them bosses that I know a lot of you will have no problems with, but for some reason I absolutely struggled with. I found his speed of attacks to be unrelenting, and although you have support coming into the fight, they are quickly defeated and it ends up just being you and him. As the fight wears on and his health is depleted, he will start to introduce new attacks that will keep the player guessing. I found a good weapon for this fight was the Great Club of Polaris. One of the martial art attacks with this weapon allows you to sweep across the ground, causing damage in the process. Whilst this is great for staggering Sun Jian, it also helps to avoid a good portion of his attacks. What can I say, if this was the most annoying bosses on Wolong, then this would win, hands down. God, I got so angry during this fight. The thing that makes this fight outright annoying is the boss cheeses you from a distance. He has combinations that just go on and on and on, and there's the slow wind up on some of his attacks. The only way you are making it through this ballsack is by mastering his shithousery, which will no doubt make countless players lose their shit in the process. Right then, we're now into my top 10 toughest bosses in Wolong, and this is where things start to get interesting. I think it was more luck than judgment when I defeated this boss, as I made educated guesses on when to deflect attacks and managed to avoid the majority of them early on. I can see why people do have a hard time with this guy though. He is agile and flies around the arena, making him hard to pin down. Equipped with a giant axe and using fire elemental attacks, you're sure to have a bumpy ride. The good thing is you do have some help in this fight, which does help take some of the aggro off you, allowing windows to cure up and apply buffs. Although featuring inside the top 10, I was a little surprised how much easier the second Lu Bu fight was compared to the first. It feels drastically different in that his attacks are now much slower and easier to avoid in the most part. You will also have Hong Jing supporting, albeit she tends to get wiped out relatively quick. There is the odd attack that feels much more like the first fight, such as when he leaps airborne and slams down. Most critical attacks though are easy to deflect, and although he mixes up his fireball attack later on in the fight, this should be easily manageable within a few attempts. Another boss that gets big build up in terms of the story is Yun Zhao. Transforming himself into a giant turtle-like creature, this guy is truly a menace. The worst part about this fight is that I never knew whether to get up close or to back up and play it defensive. Such was the array of attacks that this boss has at his disposal. Watch out for him throwing his shell at you and sliding across the arena, dealing major damage. One of his critical attacks to watch out for involves him picking the player up and blasting them from close range. There are also a variety of ice attacks to be wary of if you are to emerge victorious.
The dragon's elixir field is now inside my body.
The final boss of the game is also a challenging one and comes in at number 7 on my list. Think of UG with added mobility and helping of steroids, and you have the blindfolded boy. Every elemental spell you can think of will be dished out here, and some of them are easier to avoid than others. There is the possibility that he will clone himself and bring 2 more of himself into the fight. Generally, most of his melee type attacks are easy to deflect, so too are most critical attacks, which can provide you with windows to get your own damage dealt. The trick to this fight is concentration and patience. If you maintain your composure and do not go too gung-ho, then this is the key to success and Wolong immortality. Along with Zhang Liang, this giant cow monstrosity provides one of the early roadblocks in the game. Because players had so much fun with this guy, it became a recurring boss in the latter stages of Wolong. The thing that makes it so challenging is that one attack can nearly KO the player, and due to him hitting like a truck a lot of the time, you'll be staggered and unable to move out of the way of his killer blow. To give yourself a fighting chance, use the device beast Quilin following a successful critical attack. This should take a good chunk of damage off him. From this point, you will just have to time the deflections if you want to come through.
Any who oppose us shall know only the end of our blade.
And that brings me on to the top 5 most difficult bosses in the game. At number 5 it is the first boss that you encounter, Zhang Liang. What makes this so difficult is that you're still learning the game's mechanics at this point and have fought nothing remotely like this until now. Along with that, you get through phase 1 thinking you have won, only for phase 2 to begin, which is twice as difficult. With practice I found the first phase quite easy in the end, being able to deflect most of his attacks and even avoiding damage completely on one occasion. The second phase though was much more challenging, and this for me provided a steep learning curve and a brutal introduction to the game. Welcome to Wolong, people.
Risks his life for his duty.
In preparation for Zhang Liao, I decided to load up on equipment that offered lightning resistance, having an idea of what was coming my way. Despite that, I won't lie, this was a tough encounter to say the least. With me having 2 friends backing me up, I was a bit complacent, but it doesn't take long for the boss to decimate all those that stand in his way. The tendency is to spam the deflect button to try and avoid damage, but actually the best laid plans are to bide your time and watch for the right timing before using the deflect and moving to the side to avoid lightning damage. It is vitally important that critical and AoE attacks are avoided, as these have the ability to one-shot you, which absolutely sucks, right? Anyway, yeah, good luck folks. Into the top 3, we are nearly there folks, so stick with it and see what makes the top spot. In at 3 is Liu Bei, and this guy was an absolute nightmare to contend with. What makes this fight immensely difficult is the speed at which he navigates the arena. He will swoop in and attack, then scoot back and move away again. He will also consistently send shockwaves towards the player, dealing lightning damage throughout. Some of these you won't even see as they may come from behind the player. The only saving grace here is that you do receive some support that takes some of the early aggro away. That however won't last, and it's not long until it's just you and him in an arena baked in electricity. When you do manage to get close up, make sure you unload your best attacks and in time get critical attacks away. Being pipped into the toughest spot on this list then is the second part of the UG fight, the embodiment of demonic chi. Hopefully by the time you get through UG you will have a decent number of cure pots remaining, because trust me, you're gonna need them here. During this fight you'll be running away from fire orbs as they follow you slowly around the large arena, you'll be running frantically to dodge poison puddles that are conjured up, and you'll be dodging through endless swiping attacks and much more. There are some devilish critical attacks and even an attack where he just brushes past the player that is quite hard to avoid and can result in a one shot. Trust me when I say this, but glad to see the back of this guy. Right, this is it then folks, the number one pick on this list and the boss that I died to more times than I care to admit. It is of course the first Lu Bu fight. Despite losing God knows how many times to this geezer, I went into each attempt thinking about how I could perfect what I was doing and even resorted to upgrading my armour to increase my durability. I respected the theatre of this fight, everything is spot on from the build up to the different elements of the boss, which involves horseback and toe-to-toe segments. Once off his horse, this is when the true difficulty of the boss is on show. Lu Bu is razor sharp as he unleashes attacks, and he becomes even more unrelenting as the fight goes on. Although there are people out there who have defeated Lu Bu without taking any damage, for mere mortals like me this is a truly epic encounter that gave me an immense sense of achievement once I managed to pull through. Anyway, that brings me to the end of this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching. I hope to see you all soon, but remember to show my channel some love and hit that damn subscribe button people. Thank you and see you soon.